We've got another big AAA games update for the Nintendo Switch 2, including titles like Expedition 33, Persona 6, Capcom titles, and more. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Let's get into what's happening with Expedition 33 and the Nintendo Switch 2. This is another update on this game. We last heard about it from Nate the Hate, stating that it was still coming in 2026. He's been on this game for a while now, saying that it's being ported over to the platform. And over on Twitter, he just confirmed that once again. Somebody on Twitter tagged Nate the Hate and said, "Nate the Hate, you know if it is still confirmed the port of Expedition 33 to Switch 2? Also, there is any plans for porting Silent Hill 2, Black Flag Resynced, or Death Stranding? I would be very grateful if you could answer it." And Nate responded with just one of the games, saying yes, Expedition 33 is still coming to Switch 2. So he didn't want to talk about Silent Hill 2, Black Flag Resynced, or Death Stranding. These are all games that have been rumored to some degree or not for the Nintendo Switch 2. So I'm guessing Nate will probably have more information about those at a podcast that he does. It's been a while since his last podcast, so I'm guessing his next one is going to have some nice information for us. But let's focus on Expedition 33 because that's the game that a lot of people are asking about. And this game's interesting because it was unanimously Game of the Year last year. It was my Game of the Year, right up there with Donkey Kong Bonanza for me. It's a fantastic game that does a lot of great stuff, but it also shows kind of how far back the AAA industry is to certain aspects, with Microsoft and Sony obviously very different when it comes to Nintendo. But if you look at a lot of the huge, massive games where the publisher and developers put so much time and money and effort into, and then you have this game, Expedition 33, which is not a super small game, but not the largest game by any means, and it comes out and sells 8 million units and grabs so many Game of the Year awards and is a 90 plus rated on Metacritic, and you're thinking, wait a minute, the industry is definitely doing something wrong at this point, especially with all the layoffs and problems that we're having in the industry. So Expedition 33, it's a fantastic game. It's got some great turn-based gameplay in there, mechanics. The story is really good. The characters are well written. And I would say that one of the best things about Expedition 33, at least in my opinion, is that it knows exactly what it's trying to be. It's emulating that old school JRPG style, but then puts its own take on it here and there. Now, is it as in-depth as some of the best JRPGs? No, it's definitely not. There's absolutely more JRPGs that do more than this when it comes to a gameplay standpoint, like Romancing Saga, for example. Romancing Saga 2 Revenge of the Seven has so much more options and everything from a JRPG standpoint. But what this game does do is that it blends together a really, I would say, cinematic feel to the cutscenes and a mature storyline into the classic turn-based JRPG gameplay to great results. So I do think that it's very good in that respect. And I'm looking forward to seeing the game on the Nintendo Switch 2. This is an Unreal Engine 5 game. I do think that 60 FPS is very important. So I'm hoping that they retain that 60 FPS because in this game, you have to time your blocks to parry, and parrying is essentially the key to the game. Like if you don't parry, sure you can dodge, but if you don't parry, you're not going to be able to beat some of the best bosses on the hardest difficulty, or you're going to be in battles way longer than you need to be. Parrying is super important, especially when you parry with all three characters. Then you get the massive counterattack at the end of the turn. So I do think that Expedition 33, if they're bringing it over, it needs to retain that 60 FPS. And it needs to have a certain level of fidelity within that gameplay so it can just play out smoothly. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a bad port. But I feel that if they are bringing it over, they will retain that. Xbox Series S has that. And once again, it is a turn-based JRPG style of game with it. So it's not like you have a ton of enemies flowing out of nowhere and all of that. So we'll see what happens with the game. But we'll also see what happens with Castlevania Belmont's Curse for the Nintendo Switch 1 and by backwards compatibility, the Nintendo Switch 2, because this game's release date for the Switch 1 in particular was still kind of up in the air, but now we have a confirmation of day and date. So the Switch version of Castlevania Belmont's Curse will launch day and date with the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC via Steam and the Microsoft Store, and the date is October 15th. Publisher Konami and developer Evil Empire and Motion Twin announced. Here's a bit of an overview of the game. Medieval Paris, where the tolling bells herald the end. $14.99. Paris is engulfed in flames as monstrous creatures suddenly emerge from the shadows. Trevor Belmont, the hero who defeated Dracula, ventures into the burning streets with his daughter, Rose Belmont. Armed with the legendary Holy Whip, the vampire killer, they hunt down the beast bleeding from the looming castle. Rose is soon swept up in the dark conspiracy that lurks beneath. Will she succeed in saving Paris from devastation? The key features: satisfying whip action, diverse bosses, and arcane system. Customizing your battle system with weapons and relics. I want to talk about this a little bit more. So customize Rose's battle style by using a variety of equipment, including weapons spanning 7 distinct categories and relics that trigger powerful effects through both offense and defense. Combine equipment you discover through exploration to create your own playstyle. Iconic Castlevania atmosphere reimagined in new stages, from iconic gothic aesthetics to vivid, refined visuals. The game presents a fresh take on the world of Castlevania. Explore maps filled with both new features and familiar elements inspired by classic Castlevania titles. So this is the Castlevania game that I guess we've been waiting for a bit. I know some people don't love the style of Evil Empire and Motion Twin. They did Dead Cells. They usually do the rogue style of games, and this, they want to make sure that it's very clear, is not a rogue game. Now, I would not be surprised if there is a rogue mode once you beat the game, or even if it's just in the game from the beginning, to where if it's one kill, you go back to the beginning. That's just what Evil Empire or Motion Twin, that's just what they do. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the game, but it is a normal Castlevania style action adventure light RPG element style of game, so you don't have to worry about that if you're someone who's not into the rogue games. But at first I wasn't 100% loving the visuals of the game, but when it comes to the gameplay and what they're doing here, I love this customization. I love the action. It's super sleek. Everything looks very nice. So to me, it's just like the art style's not as grimy as I would like for a Castlevania game, but at the end of the day, that doesn't even really matter. What matters is the actual gameplay and how well they do by the Castlevania franchise. As a longtime fan, I've been playing Castlevania since pretty much the beginning on the NES back in the day, so I'm a huge Castlevania fan. I've been playing for a long time. I love the Metroidvania, Castlevania style of games. So for me at least, I'm just looking forward to seeing how they put this together after so long without having a brand new Castlevania experience. So I hope it is good. And the Switch 1 version of this game, I hope it's not crusty, because a lot of people are going to be playing this Switch 1 version backwards compatible via the Nintendo Switch 2, since there isn't a Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game, and I'm guessing that Evil Empire and Motion Twin did not have a dev kit. That's the reason why there's no native Switch 2 version. They didn't have a dev kit on time. They wanted to make sure that they finished this game on time for PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and the Nintendo Switch 1, and of course people can play that backwards compatible. I'm thinking they'll come out with a native Switch 2 version later that will be some type of free upgrade or small upgrade that you can do, but I'm hoping that the Switch 1 version of the game is smooth enough to where when people play it on their Switch 2, everything is good there, and even just the native Switch 1 version of the game should be good. So I'm not so sure. They didn't want to announce the release date the same as the other versions because I thought maybe there were some issues with it, but once again, we will see on that. But let's also take a look at what Capcom is doing, because Capcom is talking about how the RE engine is a perfect fit for the Nintendo Switch 2, and this came up because of the work that they are doing with Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen. So here's what Capcom had to say recently. Mr. Naoto Oyama had this to say in an interview with Eurogamer. The RE engine, which we're developing our games on now, is something that has actually been a really great fit for Nintendo Switch 2, explains producer Naoto Oyama. When I asked how Capcom found the process of porting Dragon's Dogma 2 to the Switch 2, he says this, quote, "As you mentioned, we've had some really well-received Nintendo Switch 2 versions of major titles, such as Pragmata and Resident Evil Requiem this year. And because this is an internal Capcom-owned engine, we've been able to accumulate knowledge and know-how from the other teams. And that means that the improvements that are made to the engine with each title and the different features that are added with new games get to stay with us, and we get to benefit from them on future titles. It's a really positive cycle for us. We've been working not only to improve performance to let the game run on Switch 2, but to improve the current base game versions on other platforms too. So they actually did optimizations across everything. So working on the Switch 2 helped them out here. That means that all the effort we've put into the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S versions of the game also pays off in the Switch 2 version, and we're currently seeing a minimum 30 frames per second rate performance on that hardware, and in many scenes it's even higher. So it's a little while to go until the game releases, but it's exceeding our expectations on Switch 2, and I hope the players agree that we've done a great job again with bringing this game to that platform. Now, we also have an update when it comes to Resident Evil Remake. Dust Golem, a very accurate leaker when it comes to Capcom stuff, stated that the pre-production of Resident Evil Remake started around August or September of 2025. He was asked this question, will there be a remake of Resident Evil 1? And Dust Golem states, yes, it started early production nearly a year ago. I hear last August/September is when it started pre-production. It'll probably enter full production after Resident Evil Veronica is finished with its crunch period it's in right now. So these two things, Capcom, the RE engine, bringing a game like Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen to the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, we know that all of the RE engine games so far are coming to Switch 2, so this Capcom Resident Evil Re-Remake would probably be coming as well, because Resident Evil Veronica is also coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, and we already got Pragmata, we're getting Onimusha, we got Resident Evil Requiem, so this is awesome to see. This is a phenomenal engine, because they're able to get this going on the Nintendo Switch 2 with no problem whatsoever. And the Switch 2 obviously is not as powerful as Xbox Series S on raw numbers. It's not as powerful as the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. It's not close to those systems, but what it does is that it has a lot of smart processes, got a lot of cool newer APIs and development atmosphere built around it. In addition to having the docked and hybrid modes, it creates a lot of versatility when it comes down to it for gamers out there, and that's why it's selling so well right now. Also, the other systems are exploding in price. Switch 2 is going up in price by $50 in September, but it's still one of the cheaper, newer systems that have came out. So a lot of people are going out there and picking it up, and Capcom is supporting it with great games. So it's great to see Capcom still doing what they do best and doing a great job on the Switch 2. Now we have another leak to get into here, and it's with Persona 6, and apparently a Chinese leaker states that the Persona 6 game is going to be about reincarnation and identity. So asked this question, what will Persona 6 be about? And they stated reincarnation. The main character will get reincarnated into another body and will have to deal with the existential crisis of not being the same person that he once was. So that is a fascinating topic. If true here, that's a really fascinating topic to explore in a video game. Not being yourself, being in a different body, people seeing you as something, then when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not yourself. And that fits right in line with some of the themes that Atlus has had about self-identity and who you are and your inner being and what type of persona that brings about. That seems about right with something, but they're taking it to a whole new level here, because that's how the person really is. It's like reincarnated for real, not like, oh, I'm in a different type of world. Now, we'll see exactly how they play about that. Maybe there is some aspects of being in a different world and feeling different when you do that. But for right now, this is just what we can go off of. And it seems kind of like Atlas's style with that. Now, once again, it is a rumor, so do take it with a grain of salt for right now. But I would not be surprised if that's kind of how Atlas is rolling with Persona 6. But we still have a long way to go before we get to the game. I'm guessing Atlas will talk more about Persona 6 after Persona 4 Revival drops early next year, because that game still needs to launch, and they're banking on that game to sell millions of copies. So I think they're going to really kind of cool it on Persona 6, not talk about it too much, get Persona 4 Revival out of the way, and then maybe they can get more into Persona 6 and when we're going to see that game and what it's about. But what do you think about everything that we talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.